Defend diversity, cries Puck Gamer. Immediately, that has a certain flavor of, I am the primary beneficiary of this thing, thus I would like it if you kept doing it to it. But this article, or well, it's a small WordPressy thing, so I don't know if it quite deserves the haughty-sounding title of article, but still, even so, does present us with an interesting view of how the progressives view themselves in 2025, hot on the heels of an absolute slaughter year for progressive ideology across virtually every branch of entertainment. I mean, we had Concord, of course, being probably one of the single largest failures in gaming history, making E.T. look like small potatoes by comparison. We had Star Wars The Acolyte, and to the point now that the Star Wars brand is practically dead. They've almost managed to murder it completely, one of the largest, most recognizable entities in entertainment. The recent Skeleton Crew series, for example, it apparently was fairly good, I've heard, but nobody watched it. It had lower ratings than The Acolyte. Oh boy. And that show, of course, was cancelled rather infamously after just one season, despite being the most diverse show you could possibly imagine. And I want to point out, it was apparently planned to have 3 seasons and a feature film. oh, really now? You gotta admire the balls on Leslie Headland, if nothing else, to think that this thing would continue on for 3 seasons and a movie. Ooh. Hey, titanium nuts on that woman, and no doubt about it. Or the Joker, God help me. Now, the Joker is not so much an example of wokeism destroying something, but the simple fact that even when Hollywood happens to cross something that people actually want, the audience legitimately wants to see, as the first movie was a surprise hit beyond any metric, well, sheer hatred of the consumer base will drive them to destroy it. They will forcibly shoot themselves in the foot for no other reason than to spite you. That is what diversity has brought us. And yet, of course, there are still a lot of people whose entire identity are built up around this idea of progressivism, of far-left diversity ideology. So let's have a read, shall we? Modern gaming isn't broken, it's not pandering, and diversity doesn't ruin games. I'm so tired of this. Let's talk about it. I mean, you're gonna have an upward battle to make that point. Particularly in 2025. Just before the new year kicked off, a mainstream website released a clickbaity article that told the reactionary line that orcs had to be orcs, and making them friendly wasn't going to make anyone happy. It wasn't a good article, but it drew attention back to the perennial problem in D&D and many of its ascendant, racism. Yeah, of course, natürlich. So I think this is the article in question. I'm not entirely sure, but it's on Wargamer. Wargamer is not a very conservative site. In fact, wasn't it Wargamer? Wasn't that the site where the guy wrote an entire article about the reason why they want female space marines is because of left-wing politics? Just outright saying it? If this is now the reactionary line, holy heck. But this article is actually fairly good. It makes a point that I'd kind of roundabout inadvertently made in a previous video as well, talking about the orcs. How the orcs are not supposed to be a civilization, sort of. They're not supposed to be these kind of like glorious creatures, or this collection of Mexicanos, as we remember from the art piece, of course. They are supposed to be a representation of the other, the invader, the barbarian beyond the border, that every civilization has a story about. That is what they're supposed to be. And making them into just people, well, well, it doesn't only ruin the feel of D&D, it ruins the entire setting. As he points out in this article right here, it's just that the orcs have become adventurers themselves. The orcs have become the player characters. The player characters themselves have virtually no enemies anymore because there are no evil forces. There is no great evil to conquer. There is no world and eternal conflict to go rescue from itself. There is no more battle against great, inimicably evil forces, or gods, monsters, beasts, behemoths, whatever. It's just Mexicans. Which, again, massively undermines, of course, the entire setting. Because at the heart of it, D&D is a combat setting. It is not a cultural or civilization construction game by any stretch of the metric. Its primary rules are all focused around how to beat orcs with a stick, not how to settle in orc society and get along with them. But we are wandering somewhat off the point here. Racism in gaming persists. Racism has been and remains a persistent problem in the tabletop RPG world, and as conservatives and their reactionary followers ramp up the culture wars to bring racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, etc. back into accepts as norms, well, yes, I am indeed aiming to bring back racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia in fantasy. That is indeed my goal. And yes, actually, unironically, in a fantasy setting, we should have all the things that we have practically eradicated from our current society. Nobody thinks racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia is good. Oh, well, maybe that latter one after one too many pride parades these days. But the reason why we do things in D&D games is to escape from reality. It makes sense for a medieval fantasy setting to probably be rather sexist. And in a world where, orcs are around and they've been raiding your village for the last 12 years for shits and giggles, racism too makes a great deal of sense. Hey, that guy over there is 12 feet tall with sharp pointed teeth. I'm gonna presume he's probably not here to settle down and live a peaceful life. All of this makes sense within the fantasy setting, and every step towards making fantasy just today not only diminishes fantasy, it diminishes today for those of us who wish to escape from it. We're seeing the pushback against diversity and inclusion increase. Whether it's attacks on actual playcast members, critics, creators, we're seeing it all ramp up. Why? Because they think they have a chance to turn back the clock. This too is largely correct, right? But identified for the incorrect reasons. See, the progressives have for quite some time now been understanding that they are not merely under attack, because initially they were the ones on the offensive against a bewildered foe who didn't even know it was goddamn fighting a battle. And then as people began to realize, their progress was halted and eventually now reversed. We have a chance to indeed turn back the clock. As wokeism grows more and more unpopular, D&D will grow more and more unpopular, and will eventually either change or die, one out of the two. Diversity made games better. Oh boy. Okay, are we going to see an actual argument here between the massively more diverse and everywhere consumer base and the advent of internet and social media giving us the voices that can't be easily ignored as they were in the past? Games got better. The quality improved. Continue. The stories they explored got better. More people than 15 to 30-year-old cis white males got to see themselves in games and join in having power fantasies. And nuance started to be normalized, but reactionaries saw it all as a personal attack. It didn't matter that they could just practice what they preached, the classic if you don't like it, fix it at your table. The mere fact that games weren't catering exclusive to them anymore was an affront, and now we're in the fallout. So no actual explanation there. And this is part of the now growing left-wing cope. They're saying, like, no, it's not that everything is garbage. It's not that Concord flopped. It's not that Star Wars The Acolyte flopped. It's not that every video game that has embraced wokeism has been objectively bad and has been ruined for it. It's not that wokeism in and of itself has become such a toxic ideology to the point where it can destroy a video game, as we saw with Indiana and The Last Circle, simply by the rumor that it might be woke. No. It's all that the evil white cis males aren't being catered to. And as to this argument here, if you don't like it, fix it at your table. See, that is a valued argument in the opposite direction as well. If you really were worried about not having any of your representation or speaking to your audience, well, you have, as said, internet and social media. You have your voice. You fix it at your table, because you have removed everybody else's opportunity to fix it. As this article outlines, now that the orcs are no longer monsters, they're just Mexicans. Now that the dark elves are no longer monsters, they're just misunderstood, pointy-eared elves with a tannish complexion. Now that ogres, goblins, whatever, they're no evil races anymore, well, shit. You can't even have a D&D adventure as the rules are written. And in every supplement, in fact, there was one released recently, there was a line in it, I tried to find it for this, but I couldn't. There was a line in it that said, you shouldn't say gnoll bandits are attacking, or no, you shouldn't say gnolls are attacking, you should say gnoll bandits are attacking, so as to not confuse the player to believe that all gnolls are bandits. Oh no, the flesh-eating violent beastmen are being shoehorned together. We are generalizing them. Oh, how terrible. Not to mention a recent mod supplement where we now have male dryads and male succubuses. We already had those. They're called incubuses. They're gendered for a reason, but details. You made it impossible for everyone to fix it at their table because you could not stand to have to fix it at yours. What do they want? To be blunt, what they want are game systems that narratively and mechanically facilitate racism. Yes, to escape from reality, we would actually like indeed to have a system that wasn't just reality. Kind of true. And on the forms of discrimination, they want to be able to use fantasy slurs and engage in fancy racism and fantasy genocide. Yes, I want to engage in all of these fantasy things. Correct. As an escape from reality, as something abnormal and besides anything that happens in our world, it would be nice to have that option. Why? Because it's funny. And I love this too. Because it's not socially acceptable to do them in public in most spaces. Correct. Accurate. They want to act out their worth impulse and belief in a system that supports them. They call it having fun. Yes! Correct! None of this is socially acceptable. These are problems that have long since been solved in society. No one supports it anymore. These are not issues. And the fact that you have to follow us into the fantasy space to make it unacceptable there as well is ridiculous. It's not even that people wish to engage in these things for the shits and giggles of it, it's being able to engage in it if they so choose to do. Yes, if people choose to have a world in which the orcs are actually evil, as they have always been portrayed, then it would be nice to have that option, and to pursue the player and forcibly change that to the point where there are no more evil creatures that all simply misunderstood World of Warcraft greenskins, well, again, that is preventing you from fixing it at your table. It is enforcing from up on high with authorial authority that no longer can you do this. You're a bad person for doing it. To putting it into the official supplement that you shouldn't generalize your fantasy races. It is overbearing. It is patronizing. It is the worrywart, overly religiously fanatical church aunt, in essence, always hovering over your shoulder going, no, you can't do that. You can't have that race be evil. Don't you know? They're misunderstood. Oh, get off my back. I just want to kill some fucking orcs, goddammit. What can we do? Nothing. It's deeply ingrained within your blood to be a worrywart bastard that are incapable of allowing anyone else to have fun. unless you can fix that, there ain't a whole lot of doing anything here. As creators and consumers, we have to walk the walk. We have to support the creators and publishers who maintain their line and not caving into perceived public pressure. Watch actual plays and listen to podcasts that support diversity and shows. Yet again, I'm getting the strange feeling that I am the primary beneficiary. Please help me, but oh well. Passive death in this instance, there's no I'll sit this out and see how the dust settles. That's a minimum that reactionaries want, because if you take yourself out of the equation, you're handing them an easy victory and making the fight harder for the rest of us. Yes, that's pretty much what the right experienced as well. Final thoughts. I'm sick to death of the mantra, go woke, go broke. Well, unfortunately, it seems to be a damn near immutable truth at this point. Getting thrown around when every metric indicates that diversity brings great success. You can just smell the success, can't you? And I'm tired of clickbait from bigger platforms trying to present the issue as something that leaves no one happy. The only people who aren't happy are racists. Well, if that's true, you seem to be heavily outnumbered by literal racists. Weird. They are only people, and those are not equal ends of a spectrum. Gamers do not need to have racism in them, and we need to draw a line. We need to stop supporting the people who write this trash and redouble our support for those who are pushing for the diverse gaming future we deserve. Now, again, he actually is correct here as well. And here's the thing, if progressives were actually able to support the things they wanted, if they indeed actually did want them, well, then the Acolyte would have had its 3 seasons. It would have had its feature film. Leslie Headland would have had all of these things because she would have had an audience to sell it to. Concord would have had an audience. Do we get an example of the dreadful character design in this? Unfortunately, I don't think so. If people had actually wanted the horrendously ugly desexual characters of Concord would have sold. It would have lived more than 2 weeks at the very least. And if people actually wanted to see the anti-establishment character of the Joker dragged down, pissed upon, and raped in the arse, then the Joker too would as well have earned money. If diversity was indeed a strength, there would not be such a backlash against it. Again, as you mentioned in the article, it is already socially unacceptable to be all of the ists that you outline. So why then, if we are all in agreement on all of these ists and the phobias, why are you still losing? The answer is, of course, that you are in the vanishingly small minority here. This is a point I've made now on several occasions, but the last 10-odd years was in essence a large-scale argument between the left and what we can generalistically refer to as the right, although that is a bit of a misleading term as well, considering the current problems that we might be having with the further extremes of the right. But between the left and normal people, that's a better one, about who had the better argument. As always, politics is the 2% arguing over the 98%. Who can convince the most people? Who has the most facts and figures, the most logic behind their side? And, again, it appears as if we have won. Resoundingly so. The majority is not on the side of defending diversity, even when you are given everything you asked for, everything you conceivably wanted, you did not support it. There were not enough of you to justify the investment, to justify the pandering. Meanwhile, the right, quote-unquote, has built its entire own infrastructure on the internet, on YouTube, on content creation, on Twitter, in comics, in video games, etc. This despite 10 years of ever-increasingly harsh crackdowns upon those very pursuits. the argument as to who had the majority on their side, who had the better worldview, has long since been settled. And you are going to need to come up with something significantly more convincing now than, trust me bro, this is totally the best way to do it, if you are going to get anyone back on your side. But I'm not entirely sure the left is even capable of doing that, because it has been entrenched in dogma for so long that I'm not entirely sure it is capable of thinking for itself anymore. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Anywho, until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon, as we begin our glorious journey into the future, where gaming might actually get a little bit better. Who knows? Have a good day.